They made that many Jurassic Park games? Anyway, we're doing a tier list of all the Jurassic Park video games, all the big video games, and some more video games that may not be as well known. Let's kick things off with the original Jurassic Park video game released in 1993, same year as the film, for the Nintendo Entertainment System. It was later ported to the Game Boy and Super Nintendo, but the gameplay here is from the NES. It's a top-down shooter developed by Ocean Software, though some versions do feature first-person elements. This was the early 90s, so seeing a movie as big as Jurassic Park transformed into a video game was a big deal. You play as Dr. Alan Grant, the famous paleontologist, and your mission is to save the grandchildren of Dr. Hammond while you fend off dinosaurs and escape Isla Nublar. There are 6 stages where you hunt dinosaur eggs, find ID cards, and unlock buildings. It's a bit repetitive, but the survival and exploration elements are still there, though it can get a bit tedious and you do have to backtrack quite a bit. The graphics are pretty good for its time, and though the game lacks the iconic movie score by John Williams, it does have its own atmospheric soundtrack. Jurassic Park for the NES is decently mediocre. It's got flaws, but the core experience still holds up and is aged better than its Super Nintendo counterpart. With a total of 9 dinosaurs in game, I'm placing it comfortably in the B tier. There was another Jurassic Park game that came out in 1993, this one for the Sega Genesis, so the graphics were better. It's a side-scroll action game, but you have the ability to play as either Dr. Grant or as a velociraptor, which was a unique gameplay feature at the time. The objective here is once again escape the island and use items in your environment to stop the dinosaurs to get to the end of each level. The game was praised upon its release for its sound effects and graphics, which really were cutting edge at the time. The development team did extensive research for their 3D modeling and even consulted paleontologist Robert Bakker on dinosaur movement. This is why the dinosaur AI in the game looks so good for the time. Although the gameplay and level design is a bit clunky, this is without a doubt the better 1993 Jurassic Park game, mostly because of the great graphics and close movie tie-ins. Heck, they even have a T-Rex that says Sega. It's not the most fun game in the world, but it's the one I'd go back to from that era for the replayability, especially as the Raptor. With a dino count of 8, what it lacks for in number of dinosaurs, it makes up for in quality and interactions. Jurassic Park for Genesis is A tier. It's 1994, and we have another Jurassic Park game, this time for the Sega CD. You remember this console? It was a bit different. It's a point-and-click adventure puzzle game. You play as a scientist who has crashed in Isla Nublar, and you have a real-world time limit of 12 hours to collect all the dino eggs and escape. You click on items in your environment and can pan around from scene to scene, but this plays more like a research assignment than a video game to me. Some people like this game because it's more informational and relaxing with a variety of obstacles to keep you occupied, but I find it kind of boring and the graphics really do show their age. What it does have going for it is the great sound effects and live action video of paleontologist Robert Bakker. Yeah, this guy was in everything back then, lecturing you on dinosaurs, of which there are only 7 in this game. I'm putting Jurassic Park Sega CD in the C tier. I'm not that into it, and it doesn't have many dinosaurs, but it is faithful to the source material, and they did put a lot of effort into getting this game right. So also in 1994, we had the Jurassic Park arcade game. Yes, I am including Jurassic Park arcade games in this tier list because they're just so iconic, and I played them all the time in the arcades as a kid. This one looks so cool. The seat is designed like you're in the back of the Ford Explorer from the movie, and it actually moves up and down. This one's a rail shooter, but you control your gun with a joystick. Sadly, you don't get the light gun in this one. The gameplay is pretty mindless here, perfect for a few rounds of quarters, and playing with friends in these arcade games is always a fun time. These machines are very rare, and you almost never see them in the arcade bars anymore, but I think they're super cool and would love to collect one myself. You don't get a ton of variety here with only 7 dinos and 2 non-dinos, but the levels are interesting and the graphics are fine. Jurassic Park Sega Arcade is a solid B tier entry. Next we have Jurassic Park Rampage Edition, the 1994 follow-up on the Sega Genesis. Like the original, this one's a side-scrolling action game, and once again you have the choice of playing as either Dr. Grant or the Velociraptor. This is more or less a revamp of the original and doesn't really offer anything new. There is a Rampage mode for the Raptor, which is kind of fun, The story here is a bit weird and it's not canon. At this time, it came out before the Lost World book had been written. After escaping the island from the previous game, you go back and try to stop InGen agents from taking dinosaur eggs, and like the first game, you fight your way through dinosaurs and navigate obstacles. This game does use a different game engine than the first one, and the graphics are a little strange to some people. Characters and dinosaurs have this distinct black outline, which I'm not sure if I'm into. Like the original, it gets a Dino score of 8, but I'm moving this one to the B tier because I think the original is the better game. So this next one is definitely a deep cut in one of the weirdest, Jurassic Park Interactive. There's just a whole bunch of strange Jurassic Park games, and it seems like studios were just kind of throwing money at making some of these movie tie-in games. This one was supposed to be a launch title for the Panasonic 3DO. You remember that console? I don't either. It's a console that time forgot, but it came out much later than the other OG Jurassic Park games due to its long development. It's a minigame strategy type game. The premise is use the map of Isla Nublar to play various minigames designed by Dennis Nedry's character from the movie. And this is the only game to actually feature licensed footage and that famous soundtrack by John Williams from the film.
The dinosaurs are now free to roam Jurassic Park.
They did swap some actors' likenesses out though, which is kind of doopy. There's a few fun levels here, like driving away from a T-Rex and dodging Triceratops, but this game overall feels very dated and amateurish. And with a dino count of 5, this one I'm gonna slate pretty low. It's D tier for me. All right, Jurassic Park Paint and Activity Center. We're really doing this one? Well, it came out for the DOS in 1994. It's kind of a paint by numbers sort of deal. Is there anything really more to say about this? Yeah, we're putting it in the E tier. Okay, our last game of 1994, the Super Nintendo sequel, Jurassic Park 2, The Chaos Continues. Again, you play as Dr. Alan Grant, but this one's a side-scroll run and gun rather than top-down. You fight your way through levels against an InGen competitor, Biosyn, going back to the island where John Hammond started it all. This one does introduce the option of a co-op mode, and you can play as a soldier alongside Dr. Grant. You're mainly fighting mercenary troops in this one, not dinosaurs, so it does feel more like a military shooter rather than a proper Jurassic Park game. Though there are a decent amount of dinosaurs, the dino count is 9, I believe, for the Super Nintendo. The Game Boy did get a version of this game too, which had 14 dinosaurs, I believe. The one thing I really do like is the soundtrack for this game. I think it's pretty decent. This game did get fairly positive reviews when it came out, but to me, the Sega Genesis games are the better side-scroller games and have better dino graphics. I'm putting Jurassic Park 2, The Chaos Continues, in the C tier. Jumping ahead to 1996, we have Jurassic Park The Ride Online Adventure. I almost didn't include this one because it's not an official release title, but rather an online game. It was produced by Universal to promote their new theme park ride, but since this is a Jurassic Park ranking, it's fair game to me. You play as the park's director of operations and are trying to contain a velociraptor that's escaped. It's a point-and-click interactive game, and you have to move from room to room looking for clues in order to contain the raptor, who will absolutely kill you, by the way. Yeah, this game is actually pretty scary because you know there's a raptor lurking just off screen, and they also threw in a T-Rex scene for good measure. This would be an E-tier game for me, but it does have that unique survival horror element that bumps it up to a D tier. The year is 1997, and we finally get something new. The Lost World Jurassic Park, released for the PlayStation and Sega Saturn. This game came out the same year as the movie and got a ton of hype. By this time, everybody loved Jurassic Park, and this game was the first to bring the series into the world of 3D graphics on the console. The only problem? It was another side-scroller, which really bummed out a lot of fans who were hoping to move around in a 3D environment. There's really not a whole lot of story to this game. You play as 5 different characters: a Compsognathus, Velociraptor, T-Rex, Human Hunter, and Dr. Sarah Harding's character from the movie, which is kind of random. The goal here is survival, and to make it the end of each level on Site B, Isla Sorna. The levels are fairly short and each character has different movements and abilities, and you can use items in your environment to fend off the bad guys and dinosaurs, of which there are at least 20. The gameplay here is pretty clunky, and without much of a story, it's not all that interesting. But it is the first Jurassic Park game to feature a soundtrack by a live orchestra. That's right, DreamWorks hired Michael Giacchino for the score, who Steven Spielberg was so impressed with, they used him for future compositions. Fun fact, you can put the PlayStation game disc into a CD player and it will play the soundtrack. This game also features one of my favorite ending scenes of any video game, a clip of Jeff Goldblum, who tells you to go outside and turn off the game.
Turn the thing off, for heaven's sakes, and go outside.
This game had so much going for it upon release, and I remember being so excited to play it as a kid, but it just never lived up to its hype, and it's not one I recommend revisiting. I'm placing The Lost World Jurassic Park on the B tier. There was actually another Lost World Jurassic Park game released in 1997, and this one for the Sega Genesis. It's a different game than the PlayStation and Saturn. The sprite graphics for this time were already becoming dated, especially up against the PlayStation version, but this game does feature some really interesting gameplay. It's a top-down run-and-gun shooter and has the ability for two-player co-op, where you can play as a hunter and Ian Malcolm. You're sent to Isla Sorna to capture dinosaurs and battle a group of bad guys. The game divides the island into 4 areas, each with its own levels. Players have the ability to collect items and use weapons, and even drive vehicles, which makes this game feel like you actually get a chance to explore. There are 8 dinos in the game, and the graphics are fine, nothing groundbreaking, but where this game really shines is its level design and freedom of movement. It's nothing special, but it breaks free from the side-scroll format of several of the past games and is actually a ton of fun to play. Many people consider this game to be the better 1997 game, even though it does have weaker graphics than the PlayStation version. It's also worth noting this game was ported to 4 different handheld consoles, including the Game Boy and the Game Gear. The Lost World Jurassic Park for the Sega Genesis is a solid A-tier entry, and is a game I would go back and play from this year. The first and only computer game of 1997, Chaos Island: The Lost World, was released by DreamWorks and is a real-time strategy game. It's kind of a tie-in to the Lost World movie, at least it has 6 actors from the film, including Jeff Goldblum and Richard Attenborough, who voice their characters.
Base camp and find Sarah.
Your goal is to fend off a group of hunters and dinosaurs. I think there's a total of 9 species on Isla Sorna, where you build and control bases and can hatch and breed dinosaurs to do the fighting for you, which I think is pretty hilarious. This game is considered to be a pretty big miss and was quickly forgotten after release, likely due to the fact that it was marketed towards young children who weren't all that interested in a real-time strategy game, and the kids' rating probably turned adults away. I think this game could have actually had a lot more potential had it been marketed toward an older audience and featured more complex strategy mechanics. It's not a horrible game, but it just kind of feels hollow. Chaos Island: The Lost World is getting placed on Tier C. The last game for 1997 is also one of my favorites. It is The Lost World Jurassic Park arcade game. The game was built using Sega's new M3 arcade board and featured new 3D dino models, and this time it comes with light guns. Yes, it is a rail shooter and one of the best from that time. It's a really impressive cabinet with a 50-inch screen and surround sound. What's really special about this game is that it's based on the early version of the script from the movie, and the action sequences feel really cinematic. What I love about this game is that you can play with a friend. I remember my brother and I would empty pockets full of quarters into this game as kids. You play as 2 hunters on Site B and have to find characters Ian and Sarah from the film who can help you escape while you blast away at dinos. The Lost World is considered by many collectors to be one of the greatest arcade shooters of all time, and its gameplay still holds up to this day. It was praised for its high-quality graphics and dinos, of which there are 14. This is, in my opinion, the best Jurassic Park arcade game, and if you're lucky enough to live close enough to an arcade that still has it, I highly recommend playing it. It's just so much fun. The Lost World Jurassic Park Arcade is our first S-tier entry. In 1998, DreamWorks and EA released Trespasser, a spiritual sequel to the Lost World movie. This game was originally supposed to come out alongside the movie in 1997, but was delayed due to budget and gameplay issues. Trespasser might be the most ambitious Jurassic Park game ever made. It was released as a first-person open-world shooter where you control the character Anne, a traveler whose plane crashes in Site B a year after the events from the Lost World movie. You explore various locales on the island and use items and weapons in your environment to survive and fend off angry dinosaurs. This game is famous for its lack of heads-up display, health bar, or item menu. Something else that's a bit unusual is you control the character's right arm. This mechanic is a bit clunky, and many reviewers found it hard to control. The game really was ahead of its time though with its open 3D world environment. It's the first game to render hundreds of trees in 3D, and was the first game to use ragdoll physics. It really is a beautiful open world setting. The only problem is that it's kind of empty and boring. There's only 7 dinosaurs in the game. It was a commercial failure and poorly reviewed, despite introducing us to some new gameplay innovations that made their way into the modern games we play today. Trespasser had a lot of potential, and had it come out a few years later with a better game engine on console, I think it would have been a massive success. Trespasser is a solid C-tier game. It's 1997, and my favorite Jurassic Park game was released this year. It's Warpath Jurassic Park, and it came out on the PlayStation. This game seems to be one of those that you either love or hate, and I love it. It's an arcade-style fighting game where you play as 14 different dinosaurs and battle it out in arena settings from the first 2 movies. Each dinosaur has their own unique attacks and movesets. Me and my brother rented this game and spent the entire weekend with it, and I haven't been able to find it anywhere since. Copies of this game are actually kind of rare, and I've seen them selling online for $100 or more, and I'm very tempted to buy one for the nostalgia. The actual gameplay is nothing to write home about, and the fighting mechanics are kind of cheesy. The big draw here is that you're fighting dinosaurs against dinosaurs. Sure, there's better dinosaur games and there's better fighting games, but what other game do you get to do both in Jurassic Park? I will admit this game is kind of dull as a single player, but it's tons of fun playing couch co-op with your friends. Warpath Jurassic Park may not have gotten great reviews, but it holds a special place in my heart, which is why I'm placing it on the A tier. In 2001, we saw the release of Jurassic Park 3 and a ton of new games for a new generation of gamers. Jurassic Park 3 Dino Defender came out for the Mac and the PC. It's a side-scroll adventure game where you play as a Dino Defender character. This character was not part of the movies and is inside some sort of futuristic biosuit. You're on Isla Sorna and must complete 6 different levels using items from your environment to complete a series of puzzle-like challenges using quick reactions to bring back the power and capture the escaped dinosaurs. This game received decent reviews and was generally praised for its computer graphics and is probably the best looking Jurassic Park game up until this point. I just think the story is kind of weird, and I don't really love the Dino Defender character, which really takes me out of the experience. There's 6 species of dinosaurs in the game, and they actually look pretty good. If you're looking for a Jurassic Park game from this era, this is the one I would skip. Jurassic Park 3 Dino Defender is a C tier. Shortly after Dino Defender was released, the same developers released Jurassic Park 3 Danger Zone. It came out for the PC and was a spiritual sequel to Dino Defender. This game features the return of the Dino Defender character who serves as a guide. The goal is to collect DNA from a dinosaur by completing a series of minigame-like challenges, where you and up to 1 other player move around the map in a board game-like way and interact with 7 species of dinosaurs. The minigames and graphics are very similar to those from Dino Defender, but the minigame element brings a new twist, even though it does feel like a blatant ripoff of Mario Party and some other mini party games from the time. Similar to Dino Defender, I'm putting Jurassic Park 3 Danger Zone in the C tier. 2001 also gave us one of the most unique game devices ever in Scan Command, Jurassic Park. This game includes a barcode scanner that could store up to 25 different scans. Scan Command is a dinosaur fighting game where an evil Dr. Quartz has taken over a Jurassic Park theme park with genetically altered dinosaurs, and it's your job to defeat them, locate 5 missing children, and escape. The battery-powered scanner could be used to scan real-life barcodes which contain genetic codes that can be transformed into dino DNA, which you can unlock in puzzle-like minigames, and then use them to level up dinosaurs that you can use for battle. This game was actually remade a year later into Jurassic Park Dinosaur Battles, which ditched the barcode scanning device and instead focused solely on the battles. The gameplay footage here is from Dinosaur Battles because I just couldn't find any Scan Command footage online. Because these games are so similar, I'm going to rank them together, and oh yeah, I'm not sure how many dinosaurs Scan Command had, but Dinosaur Battles had 9. They received mixed reviews. They were okay, I guess, and had mediocre strategy elements and lackluster graphics. I'm putting Scan Command and Jurassic Park Dinosaur Battles on the D tier. In 2001, we got another arcade game, Jurassic Park 3, this time developed by Konami instead of Sega. It's another light gun shooter where you play as two InGen Rangers who are sent to Isla Sorna by Dr. Alan Grant to rescue survivors. This game features 3 different arenas and draws on elements from the film, including a birdcage and riverboat area. I remember seeing this arcade game everywhere when the third film was released, and I probably played through it 3 or 4 times. From what I remember, it was a pretty short game, probably shorter than The Lost World, but still tons of fun. The graphics here just don't feel as crisp as The Lost World, and the screen is noticeably smaller. You stand to shoot in this one, there's no special seat enclosure. I'm pretty sure this is the least sought after Jurassic Park arcade game, and it's my least favorite. There are 7 dinos to fight in this game, including the Spinosaurus, the main antagonist of the game and film. Still though, if given the chance, I would absolutely play it again. I'm placing Jurassic Park 3 Arcade on the B tier. To close out the year 2001, we have 3 different titles released for the Game Boy Advance, starting with Jurassic Park 3 Island Attack by Konami. This one's a side-scroll and top-down action game where you play as Dr. Alan Grant on Isla Sorna and must move through 8 different areas with the goal of reaching the coast and calling the Coast Guard. Along the way, you come across 8 different species of dinosaurs, which you must outmaneuver and shoot down. Although its graphics really push the limits on the Game Boy Advance, this game is known for being kinda hard to control, and some players complain about the difficulty. One thing I really like is the sound design of the game, especially for being a GBA game, it's really good. I can't say I'd recommend this game though, it's just okay and the controls are kinda clunky, which is why Jurassic Park 3 Island Attack deserves to be on the C tier. Konami also made Jurassic Park 3 the DNA Factor, which I actually have for the Game Boy Advance. I was so excited when I got this game, but I remember getting bored with it rather quickly and never end up finishing it. It's a side-scroll action puzzle game where you play as either a photographer or a pilot, random characters not associated with the films, and are tasked with collecting dino DNA from Isla Sorna. There are 12 different dinosaurs in this game, but your encounters with them are far from memorable. This game is known for its clunky game design and gameplay mechanics and uninspiring story. From personal experience, borrowing a quote from a review, this game is better left extinct. Jurassic Park 3, the DNA Factor, gets placed on the D tier. Our last entry from 2001's Game Boy Advance era, also made by Konami, is Jurassic Park 3 Park Builder. This one is the first to introduce a park simulation game, which the Jurassic Park franchise quickly latched onto and has been making ever since. Park Builder is considered to be one of the best Game Boy Advance Jurassic Park games and received fairly good reviews, though it's pretty complex. You control various aspects of the park and have the ability to use 140 different dinosaurs, far more than any Jurassic Park game up until this point. Sure, they don't look like much more than sprites, but there are detailed illustrations you can view, which is pretty cool. The one thing this game does lack is a tutorial. There's a lot going on, and without a guide, it's a lot of trial and error. Still though, if I were to replay one Jurassic Park game from this era, it would be Jurassic Park 3 Park Builder, which I'm placing on the B tier. So when I said we left the Game Boy Advance era behind, I kinda lied. There's one more, Jurassic Park Institute Dinosaur Rescue. This one's actually quite rare. It was only released in Japan as part of the Jurassic Park Institute tour. This game consists of 5 different minigames featuring 5 different dinosaurs. It's clearly designed for kids, and the dinos in this game are cartoonish. There's not a lot of reviews about this game, but from what I can tell, it's a fairly short-lived and easy experience rather than a cohesive video game. Though if I were a collector, I'd be interested in this because of its rarity. Jurassic Park Institute Dinosaur Rescue is getting placed on the D tier. So at this point, it's the early 2000s, and excitement around the Jurassic Park franchise began to die down. There was no plans to release another film at this point. So in 2003, we got Jurassic Park Operation Genesis for the PS2 and the Xbox. This one was a fully realized park simulation game similar to SimCity and Zoo Tycoon. The The goal is to earn 5 stars for your park, which you can do by building attractions featuring 25 species of dinosaurs and maintaining the park's features and safety. It's considered to be a solid park simulation game, just with dinosaurs. However, the strategy and gameplay mechanics are nothing special. I was never really into these park simulation games, but they sure made a lot of these things. And I guess they sold fairly well because people kept buying them. I can't say I'd recommend this game. There are certainly better park simulators out there, but if you have to have one with dinosaurs in it from the early 2000s, this is the one to get. And for that reason, Jurassic Park Operation Genesis gets placed on the B tier. This next one, Jurassic Park Explorer, came out in 2007, and I debated whether or not to include it as it's both a mix of DVD and board game. I think it's worth mentioning, but ultimately I decided not to rank it as it's more board game than video game. You can fight me on that one though. It wouldn't be until 2010 that we'd get another Jurassic Park title. This one released for mobile, appropriately titled Jurassic Park, this time made by Gameloft. And it's a weird one. Back in 2010, mobile games were in a weird spot. The graphics still kind of sucked and the games seemed kind of half-baked. This game is no exception. You play as Dr. Alan Grant and Ian Malcolm, who are sent back to Isla Nublar to rid the island of poachers and fend off dinosaurs. The story here kind of reminds me of Jurassic Park Rampage, the game that was made for Sega Genesis. Like Rampage, this one is also a side-scroll action game where you gun down mercenaries and dinos that get in your way. This was not a good game. It's an uninspired shooter just wrapped in Jurassic Park branding. The graphics weren't great, the controls were clunky, and it only had 5 dinosaurs in it. Jurassic Park for mobile is going to the D tier. In 2011, we saw the release of a brand new type of Jurassic Park game called Jurassic Park The Game. This one was a cinematic point-and-click adventure made by Telltale Games. If you know anything about Telltale Games, you know these are not your traditional type of action-adventure games. They're mostly story-driven, choose-your-own-adventure, and people seem to either love them or hate them. This game is heavily inspired by the first film, but is almost like a reimagining, with many completely new characters and storylines. It consists of 4 different episodes and plays out like a sequel to the events of the first film. There was an extensive amount of development that went into making this game, and it was the first console game that had been released in almost a decade. So people were excited to experience Jurassic Park once again and see the 10 dinosaurs that made it in the game. Unfortunately, the story in this game just falls kind of flat, and rather than exploring and interacting with the wondrous world of Jurassic Park, you're just kind of along for the ride. This is a critique that often comes up with Telltale Games, but I think many fans were hoping for more out of this one. All in all, Jurassic Park The Game is an interesting, if uninspired, experience and is getting placed on the B tier. Jurassic Park Builder came out in 2012 for mobile. It's another park builder game very similar to the one released for the Game Boy Advance and Operation Genesis on the console. It's okay. Not quite as expansive as Operation Genesis was, but the core gameplay is very similar. You get a plot of land where you build a park and manage the dinosaurs. There's actually quite a lot of dinosaurs in this one, at least 100, and it was a free-to-play game. I won't pick on anything in particular here because it's more or less fine if you're into park building games. I'm placing Jurassic Park Builder on the B tier. In 2015, we got a 4th and final arcade game, Jurassic Park Arcade. Again, this one's a rail shooter, but instead of wielding a light gun, you control a fixed mounted gun. I played this game once or twice at an arcade, and I didn't love the turret style. I much prefer the light gun experience. This one is by far the most extreme arcade game, with a loud colored cabinet and brightly designed dinosaurs, of which the game claims to have over 30. With 9 different levels, this game certainly packs a lot of action. It's just not my favorite style. And with $1 per credit play, this game isn't cheap either. Still, it's the most modern Jurassic Park arcade experience, and probably the one most easily accessible to play today. I'm putting Jurassic Park Arcade in the B tier. Also in 2015, we got Jurassic World The Game for mobile. This one was released the same year as the Jurassic World movie and is essentially a sequel to the earlier mobile park builder games. It's more or less the same game with the extensive collection of over 100 dinosaurs but this time you can use hybrid dinosaurs as well. This game is free to play, but did get criticized for its in-game advertising and lackluster gameplay. At this point in time, the same park builder formula for mobile had started to show its age. I've never been a fan of the Jurassic World games, or park builders for that matter, and with such an uninspired entry, I'm putting Jurassic World, the game, on the C tier. And our last 2015 game was LEGO Jurassic World, which was released practically everywhere. This may be the most ubiquitous Jurassic Park game ever made. Heck, it was on the Wii U and the PlayStation Vita. If you've played one LEGO game, you've played them all. It's a fun action puzzle type game and follows the storyline of the first 4 films. With more than 20 dinosaur species and over 100 playable characters, there's something for everyone in this game. Just temper your expectations because this is a LEGO game designed for kids. I'm actually surprised that this is the only console game that was released with the Jurassic World film. It had been over 2 decades since the last Jurassic Park movie, and there had been a lot of interest in developing a decent Jurassic Park action game. LEGO Jurassic World is fun, if a forgettable experience, just don't expect too much as it is a LEGO game. I'm placing it on the B tier. It's 2017, and do we get a proper console entry? No, we get VRSE Jurassic World. This game released at a time when virtual reality headsets were all the rage, but still didn't work that well. VRSE Jurassic World came with a headset and a motion controller. The headset is the sort of deal where you have to use your phone and slide it in as the screen. It was a novel idea, but the game itself is kinda clunky, which you have to download from the App Store, and the virtual reality isn't really that good at all. So it's the worst of both worlds kind of deal. They didn't really market or sell many of these things, and personally, I've never seen one before in the wild. I'm putting VRSE Jurassic World on the E tier. In 2018, we get yet another mobile game, this one titled Jurassic World Play, formerly known as Jurassic World Facts. This one was developed by Mattel. It's a collection type game where you can collect over 150 dinosaur species, and like the original name entails, read facts about them. There's a few minigame type elements here too, where you can roam around and use your phone's AR to display dinosaurs in your environment. It's clearly a game for kids though. If you like collection games, this one is fine, I guess. I wouldn't really call it a game though. I'm placing Jurassic World Play on the D tier. I'm not going to grade this one, but it's worth mentioning that Dinosaur Stampede came out in 2018. It's a web game made by Doritos that was used in a marketing campaign for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, the movie. It's not really a proper game, just more reminiscent of those old Flash computer games where you dodge obstacles. Alright, fine, I'll put it on the E tier. Jurassic World Alive is another free-to-play mobile game that came out in 2018. It's an augmented reality game where you can explore the world and collect dinosaurs. It's kind of like the Pokemon Go version of Jurassic Park, just without the cultural phenomenon component. I think this game is actually pretty cool, and there's at least 100 dinos you can collect here. Other than that, it's basically your typical AR, go to location, do action, collect item type game. So if you like those type of games, and you like Jurassic Park, this one's for you. The graphics are pretty decent, and the game is actually fairly well reviewed. I'm putting Jurassic World Alive on the B tier. Our final game of 2018 is Jurassic World Evolution, which came out for the PS4, the Xbox One, PC, and the Nintendo Switch. It's another park builder game, and this time with all new graphics and design. This is a really good game, and a lot of people were pretty stoked about its release. There's over 40 species of dinosaurs, and they look pretty incredible. The graphics in this game are a huge step up from previous console and PC releases. And this game got a lot of praise. It's a pretty compelling simulator where you can not only build a theme park, but also modify your dinosaur DNA and modify the behavior and appearance of your dinos. There's a career mode and sandbox mode, and this game is just packed with tons of features and has voice acting from some of the series' favorite actors. I'll be honest, I was a bit bummed when this game came out just because we've gotten so many park simulators and collection type games, and when you can see just how good the graphics are, you just can't help but wish for a proper survival horror action game. I'm putting Jurassic World Evolution on the A tier. In 2020, we got a proper virtual reality game in Jurassic World Aftermath, this time for the Oculus Quest. This is one that I actually didn't even know existed, probably because it was released originally for the Oculus. It's a stealth survival horror game, and it's in first person. It does, however, feature cell shading animation, so it's not photorealistic. I'm actually not a huge fan of this look, to be honest. I would have much preferred a realistic looking survival game, but I guess we take what we can get. This game was actually ported to the Nintendo Switch and was released for the PSVR 2 on PS5 in 2023. It takes place on Isla Nublar after the events of the Jurassic World film. You control a character who is hunted by a pack of velociraptors, and there's also a few other dino encounters, but it's mainly a game about avoiding the raptors. I'm surprised this game wasn't that hyped. I'm giving Jurassic World Aftermath an A. Our final game is Jurassic World Evolution 2, which released in 2021. This is an absolutely gorgeous game. It's a sequel to the Jurassic World Evolution Park Builder game, and it pretty much improves upon that game in every way, including improving the AI for the dino species. Rather than being based on an archipelago like the first game, this one takes place in the United States, featuring maps across a variety of biome locations like forests and deserts. The maps in this one are significantly larger too. There's not much else I'll say about this game other than it did okay and was generally praised for its graphics and improved gameplay mechanics. If you like simulation park builders, this is the one to get. It's pretty great, but if you're like me, you'll probably pass. That being said, I am putting Jurassic World Evolution 2 on the S tier. Even though I don't like this game, I do recognize that it is the most realized Jurassic Park theme park experience that we've ever had come to life. The Jurassic Park franchise has been around almost as long as I have. I'm a huge fan of the films, and the Michael Crichton books inspired my love of the survival horror genre. But the video games, well, they've just not been that memorable to me. I think that's because many have been lacking the central theme that makes Jurassic Park, which is survival horror, which is why I'm so excited about the release of Jurassic Park Survival, a video game that fans have been begging for since the dawn of the franchise. All right, let me know what you think is the best Jurassic Park game. Do you go back to the classics, or do you stick with some of the newer titles and park builders? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.